want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for. Hey, everybody, we are back with the Free Like Me podcast. Guests come in here, they speak their truth, they leave their pain and shame behind, and they walk out of here free like me. Today's one of those feel-good episodes. I'll tell you why in a second, but first, if you would like to order my book, Scarred, it's up for pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere they sell books. So many books when I was at my lowest, inspired me to want to grow and change and heal. And I really feel my book's going to do that for everyone who reads it. So go get yourself a pre-ordered copy. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you're interested in my coaching program, reach out privately to me on any social media site or go to my website, freelike-me.com, fill out a form, set up a consultation call, and we'll get you in here. Why are you waiting? Why are you waiting to call me? Let's go. Let's get you healing and get you started on a new journey in life. And this week, I had a guest come in here maybe a month or two ago, spoke his truth, and it absolutely changed his life. He met a new person in his life. And not only did he meet a new person, but that person, Rosemary, is now here to share her story. And then we're going to hear together how the opening up and being transparent has connected them and brought love into their lives. So it's a great episode this week. Let's go. Rosemary, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is an amazing turn of events. I'm really pumped for this one.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Totally. We got to drag the people through some mud first.
For sure.
It wouldn't be the Free Like Me podcast unless we did.
Lots of mud.
And then, we're going to hose everybody off and everybody's going to feel nice and fresh and clean at the end. We'll get into the part of the story where there's romance and love soon, but let's first start with your story.
Okay.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Deer Park, New
Deer
York.
Park, Long Island?
Long Island.
Just for people around the world?
Yeah. I got married, and the only time I moved out of there was when I was married, and then I moved like 20 minutes away to Northport. Now I'm back in the hometown where I was raised and grew up, in the same house that I was raised and grew up in. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I went full circle.
What's the area like? Is it rural? Is it built up?
It was just like a nice small town, as growing up in it. It was a small town, middle class people, nice, like nice neighborhoods, very neighborhood-ish,
Is it near the water at all?
15, 20 minutes from the water. It's in the middle. So it's like, 15 minutes that way is the South Shore, 15 minutes that way is the North Shore water. So kind of in the middle.
Okay. What was life like for Rosemary as a little girl?
My parents always put me in, I was a dancer when I was little. So I was always, involved in a lot of, different events and things like that when it came to dancing and singing and music. So they knew I liked that. So I was always involved. But life as a little girl, like before all that happened, was not so, picturesque, we'll just say.
Okay.
So on my mom's side of the family, my mom's father, when I was about 4, he started to sexually abuse me, and, I was little. So, it's interesting because as a grown-up, when you think back, I do remember bits and pieces of it, but the irony of it is that my father's father was known to be a pedophile. So everybody was keeping me and my sister away from the other grandfather, and we were always around we'll call him bad grandfather, right? And that was the grandfather who was, who was responsible for my sexual abuse. So what would happen is when I was little, my grandparents would sleep over. So they'd come over my house on the weekends, and they would stay over, and he would sleep on this cot in the living room. And as a 4-year-old mind, you want to be with your grandmother or your grandfather. It's exciting. They come over. So I would hear my grandfather wake up at 5 a.m. He was an early riser. So I would creep out of my bed, and I would go, to where the cot was. And so he would lay me down on the cot, and that's where the abuse would happen. And
Now, where's the grandmother?
My grandmother would be sleeping. She would be downstairs on another bed in the, so it was just he and I upstairs and my sister was sleeping. So I would rise early. His cot was in the living room. Nobody was really up at the time. So it was just our time together. And he used to turn me over and he would, put his fingers inside of me. And I don't know what else, but, I don't remember. But he would make sure I was facing down and not looking at him during. But what would happen was that I mean, I know it was more than once because I remember vividly when they would come, I would know to go to the cot and I would just go there willingly, like, because that's just the relationship I had with him. And I didn't think that was wrong. I might have thought it was a little weird, but, in 4-year-old mind, you don't really.
No, you don't know
have
what
a
sex is.
concept. Right. After that happened, I guess I must have in passing told my sister. She's like my angel. I just have to say, like, my sister is like, she's my angel. She just, I live with her now. We live together. So I live up, she lives down. She has 2 boys. I have 2 girls, same age as the kids. They're all so close. And she has been my angel because I guess as a little girl, I must have said something to her that didn't quite sound right. She doesn't remember what, but she said something I said was off about what my relationship with my grandfather was and what was happening. I must have said something in passing. So she then told my mother. And of course, then it was out, and then so it's out. And what happens? My mother strips me of my clothes, throws me in the bathtub and starts screaming at me, shaking me. Like, so now you're 4 or 5, right? Now what's that message like, right? I did something bad. I'm ashamed. My family's crumbling. What did I do? Oh my God, this is terrifying. I was terrified. Terrified that I said anything. Terrified that my mother was shaking me, that she stripped me. So, that was a weird message. And in the end, he he would still come over and she would just dress me in clothes that were head to toe. So he wasn't enticed. And as I grew older, she would say, if we spoke about it, which was very rare, but if we did, she would say, well, your grandmother and your grandfather don't have relations anymore. So this is why that was the rationale.
Wow.
So what did that tell me? That tells me that when you stop having sex with your partner, it's okay for them to have sex with children.
Right.
Like that, my therapist pointed out to me only 3 years ago. Like I never even thought of that in my head. And she's like, do you realize like what she said to you, how that was rationalized, how screwed up that would make you feel in a sexual relationship with a partner? Like if you don't constantly have sex, that person is going to turn into or could turn into an abuser.
Pedophile.
Like what pressure is that? So yeah, it was quite the upbringing in terms of, my childhood. It was a little messy.
So on the father's side, the grandfather is a known pedophile and we stay away from him.
Who lived with us?
And he lived with you.
He lived downstairs for a while, so they were okay housing him. They just would keep everybody separate. Like they'd make sure the children were never around him alone. But yeah, he had the reputation of being a pedophile and, making passes at his sons' wives and their children, which is just bizarre to me.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody just knew, oh, we're going to have Sunday dinner anyway. He's pedophile. Just don't, you just kind of stepped around him. But I guess that gave my mother relief that her father was not that way, but.
And then he turned out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then it's put on you, that. It's so many people come in here with their mothers that just can't address it, won't face it. And it's like getting abused all over again.
I was going to say, I think that might be one of the worst parts is that the response or lack of, because how do you feel like as a kid, my father had a reputation of being a little crooked. He was jailed when I was an adult, but he was jailed and he had a bad reputation for racketeering and whatever, like all kinds of things. But in my big family picture, like my uncles and my cousins, whenever there was a problem, some kind of an altercation, my family's from Brooklyn, my cousins and things, they would call my father to handle whatever the problem was. And I distinctly remember a cousin of mine having a problem with a boy guy. She was 18 and she was left on the side of the road. I don't know most of the story, but it was a bad one with her and somebody else. And my father gets the call at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's sending his people out to find this guy, kill him, whatever. And he has his own daughter, 4 years old, molested by his father-in-law, and he does nothing.
Zero.
So how am I like, when you think about it, like, where is that? How am I supposed to feel loved? Like like I was a dog, like I just didn't matter. And it was really, I guess you don't realize it at the time. It's just as you get older and you grow, you start to have problems, as we all know, as victims of abuse and survivors. You start to have problems living. I developed phobias where and I still have them. I mean, I can't drive very far. I can't, getting on a plane is hard. Normal things that people, I'm a grown ass woman.
Right.
And I am, the word shame comes up because for so long I felt so ashamed of those feelings, but they all stem from not feeling loved, not feeling cared about, not like I was made to feel like I was just a piece of, I don't even like, it's okay that this man is having sex with us. Just throw some more clothes on her so he doesn't, it was just so messed up.
What happened with this neighbor?
I was raised on a block with mostly boys my age. So I played with a lot of the boys. And so we were at one of the houses and, the dad, the boys went in one room and for whatever reason, I don't remember, I was in another. And the father was there and he was playing this game with me, this quarter game. He always used to play it with me. And I just, as a kid, I was maybe 6, right? We're so pure in our thinking. We just, you can't even fathom and like perceive this. Because I always try to go into the 6-year-old mind, what was I thinking? It's just an innocent game, man. He's quarter in the pocket, try to find the quarter, try to grab it. And I'm tugging on his penis. Now, I don't know. And he's like, no, you got to move to the left. And, he's like basically getting off on me and I'm not realizing. And this game would go on a couple of times, I don't remember how many times, maybe 2 or 3 times until finally one day when I was doing it, I looked at his face and I realized that doesn't look like a normal face. Like that's not a parent face. That was a very frightening face he was making. So I just ran home to tell my mother what happened.
And what happened this time?
Don't play there anymore.
Huh.
So
it's not like she grabs a pitchfork and goes over to the house to
it's like,
chase him.
And I think as we get older, as I got older to be a parent, it kind of got worse. Like even though I was in counseling a long time and all that stuff, always helping myself, always dealing with it, always, facing it head on, praying about it, coping, learning to cope. But then as you get older and you get married and you have kids on your own, you realize the bond between a parent and a child. And I, like you said, like a pitchfork. If anybody, there's been times with things that were so minuscule in comparison to this, I cannot imagine how they have the self-control to not kill somebody or hurt somebody because it feels worth it, man. It's like, it's your child. And it's amazing to me how they sit and rationalize when.
And do you think your father, do you think your mother told your father about the neighbor?
I think he would have responded the same way. I mean, she probably did. I don't know that answer, and I probably would not be surprised if she did and nothing happened, because why would it? I mean, he didn't seem to do much about, his father-in-law. I just don't think he would have. I don't know. She did. Never asked.
I can, sense the type of guy your father was, what he was involved in, who he was involved in. All the other members of the family are calling him to rectify problems.
And he rectified
And he would
every
rectify
problem.
them. And yet here, his little daughter, he's got 2 monsters right under his nose and he doesn't do anything. That's really, that's a little bizarre.
No matter what he did for a living, but knowing that he was known as this protector. He's a protector. In fact, one time, you're probably going to understand this. This is how sick abuse gets. So one time I was married and my husband it was like Christmas dinner, I think, at my house. And my family decides to just sit around and talk about how wonderful my grandfather is, like the one who abused me. So now I'm used to them doing this. So to me, it's like, now my ex-husband lost his shit, and me and everybody else got mad at him. That's how sick the abuse is, that you get mad at people that try to help you and intervene and support you. You're so programmed to keeping that peace, to understanding that no, this is just the way it is, that I actually argued with him and everybody kicked him out of the house. And he was like, "What is wrong with this picture?" Right? One
Yeah.
person tries to come to my aid and I'm like, because it disrupted the psycho conversation they were having. What is that? What is that? It's so twisted. It's you just brainwashed.
As you go into teen years, young adult years, is there how is this affecting you? Is there any self-destruction? Is there self-harm? Is there eating disorders? Is there drug, alcohol use? Are you
Um,
numbing yourself in any way?
there was definitely a lot of cocaine use when I was, in high school. I was a big cocaine user. But I always feel like God was involved in my
Did you ever get mad at God?
never. I
Never.
I have had such a strong relationship with God since I'm a little girl. So I don't I am so, and I know that's rare. I remember being 5 years old and praying, not five, I'm not going to, I'll say eight. At eight, because my parents separated and were getting divorced at that time. And my mother used to take us to church all the time. And I just, 8 years old, I had this belief. I still do, but at eight, now that I know a lot of 8-year-olds, I mean, it's not very common that 8-year-olds would sit and pray. And I believe that God always had a hand in my life. I know that. I know God always had his hand on me. I feel that. It really came, full circle with the ending of the story, how this is going to end. But so yeah, there was substance abuse. There was sex. I mean, there was a lot of like overly sexed behavior,
Hypersexual. A
hypersexual,
lot of us
totally
become.
hypersexual.
Right.
A lot of that, and there was then later in life, because I really wasn't a drinker when I was. I mean, I guess was doing the cocaine then. There was no drinking, and then as I got older, I started to drink a little bit here and there. But then I had okay, poor relationships. Let's just say all of this is gonna lead
You
to
you
poor
you you
relationships.
you constantly
Right.
found the wrong guy,
So the
let's
wrong
say.
relationships,
Right.
the wrong, just twisted. A lot of the relationships were over sexual, swinging, weird things that were presented to me. It was like I was a magnet. I would find these people that were not. They were just,
Not healthy.
for me.
Yeah.
It was just aggressive sexual behavior, and I constantly found it. So when I didn't find it, and I passed on to the next person, one of the boyfriends for a long time was a very big alcohol user. So I then hopped on that bandwagon. So every day I would drink,
If
every
you
night.
can't beat them, you join them.
Oh, every night, drink, 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 drink. 5 years. And then finally, after that, I broke off the relationship with the person and talked about it in therapy. And I was able to move away from all of that drinking, and I was able to stabilize. But it was, up until the past, I want to say, I don't know, year, I want to say. Things were either always excessive drinking, excessive sex, excessive whatever, excessive, ridiculous. But now I think like, things started to level out a bit.
Did you ever feel grounded in life? Like at
I do
ease with
now.
yourself? Right now, I'm saying
I
really
didn't.
at peace and grounded
No.
and tranquil and serene.
No, I always, in fact, as a singer, I'm a teacher. I teach singing and lessons of musical instruments and things like that. And I remember I was a singer and I was going to school for singing. It was like my dream, my life, the whole bit. And I remember I woke up one morning and I had chronic laryngitis. Didn't know why, right? 5 days goes by, turns into 2 weeks. So I have to go to a doctor, and the doctor's looking down my throat and all that, up my nose. And they're like, and I want them to find something wrong because I can't sing, I can't talk. So what's wrong with me? And it was like the worst news you could hear. It's like, nothing's wrong with you but you. you need to go to a psychotherapist. I'm like, I'm in therapy. They're like, well, keep going because what you're experiencing is trauma.
Wow.
So some kind of triggering went on in college. I can't even tell you what because I don't know. There were so many scary things that went on in college. There were weird groups. There was that weird sexual behavior in college. I was invited to weird parties. It could have been anything. And I had to go back to vocal therapy to learn how to talk.
Wow.
Talk about demeaning. Like I was like, I had to take a leave of absence from school and I had to just go to this person who helped me learn to speak and get my voice back again. And, they never, so that took about, I guess, a year or two, and it was it felt like forever because when you're a singer and you're a person that needs to use their voice, how difficult is that, right?
Yeah.
It's awful.
I would say as a young girl, you never had a voice. Your voice was taken from you. You weren't protected. And so whatever triggered you, you had no voice when you were 4 to 6 and being abused.
Yeah, it could have been I say like any time there's weird sex stuff or there's just so many things that are triggering to me. I get triggered still till this day easily by things, but I through counseling, and I talk myself through it and I have, you learn through counseling, which is amazing. And God, how to, you recognize the behavior, you recognize it's not real. And then you have to I go into I call it my toolbox of things that I have that help me to like balance myself. Because there are times like I'll start to lose my voice again over certain situations that arise. I'll feel it, so it cost me my career because I don't have a voice that's solid and stable when all these little triggers happen and I'm always falling off the edge. So I gave that up for teaching. And it's fine. I mean, I'm fine with it now. I think there was a reason why that happened completely. I was telling, somebody in the car today, Pasquale, I was telling him in the car today that so many times I got so close to record deals, to, opened up for Kool and the Gang, opened up for Marky Mark. I got far, had a few record deals. Something would always happen to stop it. So I feel that God interceded, and for whatever his reason is, he wanted me exactly where he put me. So I'm content with that.
As a teacher.
I'm content with that. Also, my love for children, I gravitate toward them because I never had a childhood. I never was a kid. I was always, a person with this heavy shit over my head. I felt like a non-person. I felt like, I don't know, you've been there.
Yeah.
You just feel like, I felt like a sand granule. I always felt like in school, like everybody was looking at me. They weren't, but in my head, it was like, oh, shame, shame. The teacher would call on me for attendance. My whole face would get red. People were looking at me. It was terrifying. It's awful. And I carried it, for most of my life. So it was difficult.
When did you first get into therapy?
I was about 17. I wrote a term paper or a paper of some sort in my honors English class. I was failing every other subject, but I was in honors English, don't ask. So Mrs. Posner was the English teacher, and she was reading my paper, which I got an A on, but she wrote something on the bottom of it, like, please see me after class or whatever. So I saw her, and she was like, your paper, she used to call me Rosie. She was like, Rosie, this is a great paper. She's like, but I have to be honest with you. You've written things in here that are raising a flag for me. She's like, I think, it was a paper about family life. I don't remember what exactly, but I'm sure it was interesting. So she flagged it. She called my mother. She's like, I don't trust that you're going to tell your mother that I'm going to call her. So she did. And my mother put me in counseling, thank God. And she did. And my therapist was a man, and he used to tell me that he wanted me to wear little dresses I never told you this part.
Wow.
So I had a male therapist who would tell me to wear skimpy clothes because I had to learn how to become out. I had to learn how to come outside myself because I was so shy and withdrawn. So he'd be like, I want this to be, I look back at it now and I want to punch him.
Ugh.
And I was so, vulnerable. I thought he was helping me. So I'd wear these dresses and I'd be like, I have to cross like, this main road. What's that road in road by us? Whatever. He was in Huntington, so I'd have to cross New York Avenue, and I'd be so embarrassed because I was wearing like this short And it went on for a while until finally my sister had the same therapist, and she said, we have to stop going to him. There's something fucking wrong with him. He would tell me, you need to fall in love with your therapist. This is
Ugh.
what you need to do. You need people, patients fall in love with their therapist. Twisted. But anyway, I then went on to a better therapist who told me that the right move was what I did. Leave that therapist. He was insane. And so,
Yeah, I mean, so many people feel like they have this, beacon light above their head
it's
that just
terrible.
is like, I'm free game, I'm easy pickings here,
Yeah,
and it's
it's
just one person after another that tries to abuse.
awful. It's just it's an energy, and people pick up on it
Right.
subconsciously. There's a subconscious energy, and yeah, those abusers pick up on it in a hot New York second, which is why I have a safety problem. I always feel unsafe. I always need to feel safe in a relationship. Of I have to feel safe, but most people should feel safe in a relationship if you think about it. But in the relationships I chose, there wasn't any safety. It was just, crazy.
I told my therapist how, like, now that I speak out, like I can just sense when somebody's got something, and it's just like uncanny. Like, I'll tell them my story and they'll be like, me too. And my girlfriend will be like, I don't know how you do that everywhere we go, like the
It's
waitress in a
crazy.
diner, the front desk person at a
I can
hotel.
tell.
And so one day I was talking to her about how, like, predators, like, just can sense that you're vulnerable, and I go, they're like sharks. How do they do it? And she goes, well, you've told me in prior sessions that you can find people to go talk to that you just know have been
You
abused.
can
Like,
sense it.
you have that sense. She goes, they have the sense for somebody who's vulnerable and they can attack.
And I used to work in a preschool. I've always worked with kids. My whole life is around teaching children. I do teach adults, but predominantly I'm known in my town for the teaching the kids music. And I've done that for the past 30, 20, 28 years, something like that. So it's been a while. And I have a good reputation, which I am so happy about. But because I love children and I just feel like they're so innocent, and I'm so obsessed with their innocence because I feel like I never had it. And I try to see what is it about the kids that I grab it. It's so many things. It's just that I also want them to always feel comfortable and safe and provide safety. There's so many things, I guess all the things I didn't get, I want to give, and it makes me feel so good to give those things to because they really are so innocent. It's just so sad how they get so taken advantage of.
I've always had, like, dogs and little babies love me, like, and I think it's like they can sense something
That's
with your innocent,
it's your soul.
yeah, like,
Your goodness. You're good, good inside. And I have to say that even though I've been through so much trauma, you've been through trauma, other people I know have been through trauma, those people, like, they're really good people. Like, I'm not saying that you should go through trauma to be a good person or have that happen, but you learn. It's just there's a different they're different. They're not hard. They're soft inside
right.
from the people I've met. And I've gone to years ago. I used to go to sexual abuse meetings. So I've met quite a few people. They don't really have them very much anymore. I haven't seen anywhere we live, but I was able to attend, and beautiful people. Like, we would share our stories, and it's a sad connection, like, again, but lemonade from lemons. It was a beautiful connection because I met such wonderful people. So I mean, there's not so it's terrible, but they're not, their souls are like different.
Yeah, I think it's once you start healing that part comes out, and you're like,
Yeah.
when you're stuck with that pain, you're
Yeah, I don't think that
self-destructive,
if I
and
met somebody that didn't, wasn't facing there, it would be
right.
different.
Yeah,
But
it's totally
I
different.
was in a setting with people who wanted to get better
Right.
and to learn. So
Yeah, like, I tell people, like, I wasn't Mr. Compassionate throughout my earlier years because I hated myself.
right.
How can I show love to you when I hate myself? It's only after you begin healing, then you can, like, you feel empathy towards others because you start loving yourself again.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
Did you ever, like later on in life, have a talk with your parents? Did you ever confront them and
My
say, like, you guys
parents,
failed me as a kid
we
or
went
anything?
we went to a therapy session.
You
I
did?
want to say I was in my 20s.
With both parents?
Both parents
Okay.
went into that was like the good when I found the good therapist, and what happened was my grandfather died, the abuser, my abuser, and my whole family was going to Florida to the wake, which is where he lived, and I was like, and they were expecting me to go, like they were getting me a plane ticket, and my therapist was like, no, even if you feel like going and you see nothing wrong with it, as your therapist, I have to tell you, you have to stand down right now. So I was like, I knew it was going to cause trouble. So it was causing trouble in my family because I wasn't going to go. And it was, dissension. I was going against the the vicious cycle of the abuse of not dealing with it. But I did. I listened to my therapist, and then my parents were going to go, and then we had an argument of some sort about it, and then my mother, I prayed about it. I prayed about it to God, and then my mother the next day said, I was thinking about what you said, and like she said, she felt like God spoke to her and said, if you go to this wake, you're adding insult to injury. Do not go to this wake. So she pulled the plane tickets and everybody stayed home. And during that time, they agreed to go to meet with my counselor. So we were in the room, and my counselor said to me, what is the one question you want to ask your parents right now? And I said to my father, or my mother, I said to my mother, what did dad say when you told him that I was sexually abused by your father? And she said, I don't want to tell you. And I was like, but we're here to be honest and open. And then he said, it's not my father, you handle it. And it broke me. It just broke me. It just hurt my feelings so badly. I was like, oh my God. And he sat there and he just said, he was in denial, and it was too close. It was too close to him. Like he was afraid he couldn't see it. He couldn't do it. That was his way of like, I loved you too much. Whatever. So it didn't help. I was like, so that was the answer I got. And then I decided never to go back to counseling with them again. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to hear anymore. I just didn't. I
Right.
wasn't going to get anything I wanted to hear out of it. So I'd rather just like, and it was fine. My therapist said it was fine. I went, I did the one session, you know, and that was that.
Right. I always advise people not to go confront their abusers either, because it's just like
It's like, what are you going to get?
they're monsters. Like
You're not gonna get
you're right. You're gonna get traumatized all over again
right.
because they're not gonna tell you what you want to hear.
Exactly. It's just not worth it
Yeah.
at all.
Back around the first of the year, you've gone through a marriage, divorce, horrible relationships. You got out of another one where you're drinking a lot, and you're just like your life's been just one crap relationship after another, and you laid it on the line with God at what you wanted in life. Take me into that.
I basically was at a point in my life where I was alone, and I was really happy being alone. It's the first time that I was by myself with no relationship, and I was happy in my own skin. I was just in a really good place, and I remember saying to myself, or praying to God actually, um, that I wanted to share my life with somebody, but if that person couldn't fit into this little tiny box, that I would be okay being alone. So because I prepared myself that the box that that it was going to be so impossible to fulfill this list I had. So I was preparing myself. Well, if it doesn't happen, I'm okay being alone, but I will not be in a relationship with anybody that does not have these. I'm just not doing it. So anyway, I had to pray to God, and I was asking Him when the new year came, told him I was ready to have a real relationship, and I needed him to provide me with a person that fell into this criteria. And some of those things were like, the person has to live within 3 miles of my house. The person has to believe in God and go to church with me. Okay, which is something I have never found in anybody. the person has to um, understand the word humility and be humble,
Humble.
which was a very okay. I would like the person to be attached to a family I know, because I don't want to go and meet somebody that's totally foreign, because that could be scary, because you don't know who they are and where they come from. I wanted some kind of a connection. Um, my God, I wanted the person to be 6 foot. I wanted the person to have tattoos. I mean, I hate to be saying the physical, but I just laid it all out there. I just was like, what do I got to lose? Right. So there's probably more things I said, but I can't remember them. But
And
there was a lot.
you're thinking you made the box so small
I'm
for
like,
God.
I said, God's probably cracking up right now,
Right.
saying this girl does not want a relationship because this is completely impossible. So I said the prayer, and then I always would say, if it's not the way I need it. And then I also said, and whatever else you think that I need to be happy, like on this path, where you could throw some more things in that you think I need, that I don't know I need. Okay. So that's what happened.
All right. So then let's go. So that's around the first of the year. So then about
So stupid.
2 months ago.
No, it gets better.
Oh.
So I go on a dating site and I meet a person on the site, and like I really liked him. I mean, I didn't in the beginning, but like we went out a few times, and like I really did like his personality, and I thought he could be like a really nice person for me from what I saw. And then all of a sudden, like the guy just drops off. Like, so I said to God, if this person's not for me, if anybody's not, like, take him out. All right. So then the next day is like crickets. The guy just vanishes.
Ghosted you.
So I was like mad, I was like, oh, so mad. Like, God, why are you doing this? Like, why would you do that? Like, I don't, why though? So anyway, I let it go. Now we're a week after that incident. Okay. And I go down. In my house, we have this thing called morning meeting. It's my sister and myself before she goes to work, and my mom, who's elderly. She's like 85. We all have breakfast together. So we're having breakfast, and my sister goes, well, I guess I should preface by saying Pasquale and I knew each other 12 years prior. We passed, we passed, we crossed paths for a minute. There was like a little bit of, something that could have happened, but it didn't happen. So we kind of went our separate ways and leave it there. So now my sister comes down and she goes, did you see the podcast on Facebook? I'm like, no. She's like, I go, who is it? And she's like, it's Pasquale. She's like, you have to watch it. I'm not even going to tell you. You just have to watch it. So now we're at the table and we're all watching Pasquale at morning meeting, having our coffee. And like my jaw dropped. Like I could not believe, first of all, that he was an abused child, sexually abused. I could not believe he was coming out with it. He was like telling his truth. I mean, I think my jaw was just down the whole time. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock, complete and utter shock. And I knew that I had to reach out to him because I knew I needed to connect with him. I just knew it in my heart. Like, me too, Pasquale, and amen to you and bravo, because you're a brave man. Like, I just had to say those things. That was why I reached out. I truly, in my heart, felt compelled to do that, which I never usually do to
And
people.
then you said, how about
And
we
then
get
I
a cup
said
of
to
coffee?
him, and I said, listen, if you want to talk, I'm down for talking. I'd love to talk to you about, about all the things, that you talked about. I'd love to share my story. We can share our stories. And he was like, okay, and then a day went by, and like typical it was fine. Like 2 days went by, and then he was like, let's meet. And so we did.
Rosemary, speaking of Pasquale, why don't we take a pause right there, and we'll invite him in, and then we'll pick up on that first date. Pasquale, my brother, welcome back.
Yes, sir. Glad to be back.
For those who didn't see your episode a couple months ago, you are a retired NYPD officer.
Correct.
And throughout your career, you were harboring a deep secret from your childhood, and it really derailed your life. Just share with the audience, what you went through, and what made you decide to finally speak out.
It was, I was a child, I was a kid, about 8 years old, neighbor across the street. Lasted about a year. Within that year, the mother knew, the brothers knew, everybody knew, but my own family didn't know because I never told them. I kept it to myself. And the reason really why I came out when I first, like I said, when I first came across your page, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, this guy's talking shit that I went through as a kid. And, the violence behind it was also crossed my mind as we spoke about it the first time. And it really was time for me to let it all out because I really hit a low point in my life because I kept repeating the same things with different faces over and over and over again. And I knew that it was time to really, my second marriage was the rock bottom, the end of my second marriage. So I knew I needed to change. I wanted to change. I had to change. And I had to get this part of it. Took a while to get, that part out of me. But, viewing your story was really the catalyst to really start. But it took a little while to get there. Of course, I reached out to you. I sent you a message. But even before then, I found myself really talking about it to people that I was close to. And then the more it came about, and the closer we got to that point when I came onto the show, I really was I knew I was making the right decision to bring it out because I found myself talking about it to complete strangers. So really the purpose was for me was not only to get it out, to just get that part of it out of me, but really to help others, men, women,
right,
children, whoever, because we all go through something in life. And
yeah. Just to go back. So you had a next door neighbor, you were around 8 years old, and the next door neighbor starts molesting you and raping you. You had immigrant parents who didn't talk at the dinner table. They both worked hard. They just wanted silence at the table. You didn't feel you could go to them and open up. So you bottle this all in.
Exactly.
And then it leads to a lot of drinking during your career, a lot of womanizing, just chasing women, thinking that's going to fill this void. It's going to prove you're a man. Same thing I did my whole life. We got this inferiority complex, this self-loathing. On the outside, we look big and tough and strong. On the inside, we're broken and shattered, and we're trying to
100%
trying to just fix that in destructive ways. I don't know if the camera can really pick up, but you're a big, tough, strong guy. You're well built, and for you to come on, retired cop, and open up that you were raped by your neighbor, it's pretty powerful, bro. And Rosemary heard that. I applauded you, because I know how tough that is. Cops have to have a bravado. They're out there risking their life. They're supposed to be the protector and save people. They can't let their guard down. And yet you were finally ready. Like, if I'm going to salvage anything out of this life, I gotta be vulnerable and let my guard down.
That's really what it comes down to, is vulnerability.
Yeah.
You have to be that way to really open yourself up and to show others that, okay, listen, just like you said, you look at me and you think I'm this can't approach me type of person, or I'm going to rip your head off, or whatever the case may be. But it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
I've always been a protector through my years because of what had transpired. So I always looked in that part of me, but yeah, I was broken, man.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I, we spoke a lot, not besides the podcast, and you're just like, man, if unless I address this, I'm just going to continue on with this same BS, womanizing, hurting people, feeling like the shell of a man I am, so I got to do this to like salvage the rest of my life. And then exactly what you were trying to salvage actually came to fruition. It's amazing. That's where the great story is. Like, you knew, like, to have any type of quality life going forward, you had to face this monster.
Absolutely.
Had to. and you like, like, I can't keep going through marriages. I can't keep hurting people. I can't keep finding destructive relationships. Same thing Rosemary said to herself, like, I'm just sick of it, and I got sick of it, like, I went to the extreme, yes. And, the lieutenant of the state police who arrested me is like, why now? Why'd you do it now? And I'm like, I couldn't lay my head down on the pillow another night knowing what he was doing to little boys,
Yep.
and but I had to address it too, and then decide to heal, so bravo
Yeah.
for addressing that, man. It's actually, our mind, like, if anybody finds out about this, oh my God, they're gonna think I'm gay. They're gonna
Right.
think I'm weak.
Yeah,
they're gonna think I'm a
right.
sissy. They're gonna think I liked
You
it.
have
I
all those
enjoyed it.
emotions. Yeah.
That's what our
That's-
mind. We got to keep this to ourselves. What will people think about it?
Embarrassment.
Yeah,
Shame.
more shame on the shame we're already carrying.
More shame on the shame, right?
And it's the complete opposite. When you speak out about it, people think you're a badass mofo.
I've had so many positive responses back, a lot from people that had no idea, and it's great. It's nice to hear, but hopefully this again is going to reach people I have no idea who they are, because that truly is the goal. The goal is to reach them, and if they reach out, like I have, and I kept my page public ever since the podcast, so it's an open page.
Right.
So if they reach out to me, great. I've had people reach out to me. How do you do it? How do you do this? Men, women, and the biggest thing I say is you have to really. And remember, I said this word to you on our first podcast. I said you have to get to the dark truths of yourself, and you have to dig deep inside yourself, and you have to be completely honest, and you have to love every part of it. You have to love those parts. You have to love those ugly parts of it. You have to not love, but accept.
That's what I
accept
say. Yeah.
those ugly parts,
Right.
because it's brought you to where you are now. And once you do that, the journey the journey never stops.
No.
It does not stop. It's just you, like she said, develop tools, and when those things come back, you are going to sit with it. You're going to listen to yourself. You're not going to react, because we're all emotional reactors. I reacted. It's sitting in it, letting it process, and letting it go.
And the first thing is being able to talk about it.
And
like,
being able
if
to
you're
talk.
allergic to ketchup and you can't say the word ketchup to anybody, then how you ever gonna overcome ketchup allergy? You got to be able to say the word that is holding you hostage. And our word for the three of us is childhood sexual abuse. But why we carry all the shame and the abusers just walk off into the sunset. It's amazing,
For me, the best part of it was saying my neighbor across the street. My neighbor across the street.
Right.
In Deer Park.
Yeah.
I don't feel...
You don't have to do what I did. I tell people you don't, because then you're spending your life in prison, Right. But if you can file a suit against them, do that. If you can shame them online, do that.
That's the best thing.
Yeah.
It was because I know it's gotten back. I know it. I know it in my soul that it's gotten back.
Right.
And to me, that's good enough. I don't even have to say his name.
Right. Who was it again? Your neighbor across the street?
My neighbor across the street.
Let's just...
Yeah.
Your neighbor across the street.
Yeah. And those who knew me where I live.
They know who the neighbor across the street is.
So
there you have it.
So that's really it's lays back on them, and they have to live with that.
Yeah. So Rosemary hears the interview you and I did 2 months ago, and she's blown away, and she has to reach out to you, and she invites you out for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're thinking at the time, like, all right, I'll go have a cup of coffee with her and talk to her. Maybe she's got some story to tell.
Yeah.
And then she did.
And she did.
Yeah,
she did.
I mean, did you both feel something by the end of that coffee?
We talked for a while. Actually, I had wine. She had coffee.
Okay.
She was nervous. She said she was nervous.
What?
She was a little. I was a little nervous. Was I nervous? I wasn't nervous. I looked forward to it, because like she said, we tried to get together like 12 years
You
prior.
knew each other from
each
12
other.
years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually took a singing lesson from her, at her studio, which was funny.
We laugh about it now.
Yeah. So, but that day, that night we met. It was nice. We had a nice conversation. We left, and at that point, I really wasn't thinking about any. Again, it was something new. It was like I knew her, didn't know her fully, but knew of her. It was a while, and I was blown away that she reached out to me, and I was like, "Holy shit, this fucking happened to her too."
Were you shocked that I had a story?
Yeah,
Because I was shocked that you had a story.
But then again, I was shocked because again, it's somebody I knew in in town, but in reality, I believe everybody has a story that they hold, and she told me, so we connected on that, and then I think we set up another. I think
You
I told
asked me out to your house. To your
Yeah,
house
I
to
was like,
watch
"Oh, you want to watch a movie?" And you're like, "Oh, you should have told me earlier." I was like, "All right,
Right.
no big deal." And so we made it
the next day.
the next day, and it was very easy, very comfortable. There was no I knew. I was like,
Just wanted the same things. I think.
Yeah.
You go out with people these days, and people aren't vulnerable and forthcoming about what they want. So you kind of. But he's very vulnerable and forthcoming, and I was as well. And we kind of just.
we mirrored. She
Yeah, it was
mirrored
like
what
we
I
just-
wanted, and who she was, and the conversations were just great conversations.
And
Open.
vulnerable.
Yes,
Each person
just
being
different.
vulnerable, not
Right.
putting on that fake
No.
persona.
We went through the same, like she said, the same aspect of relationship and situationships, and again, that's no, everybody that comes across your life is meant there for a reason, so it's no judgments against anyone.
No,
That
Of course not.
nothing like that, we
Because
went through the same.
everyone you both were with, they're on their own journey too.
100%.
And
Yeah.
whether they arrive at the mountain or not, or they stay in the valley, that's up to
That's
them.
up to
but,
them, right?
And
you
if
know,
he and I would have wound up together those 12 years ago, it wouldn't have worked.
She would have. She probably would have been that same destructive.
It would have.
It would have been. I know it would have been.
It would have been bad.
100%.
Well, that's I said that to Rosemary on the phone because my girlfriend now was my college sweetheart. And
I didn't know that.
Had we stayed together 30 years ago,
Right.
I would have destroyed her.
Oh my God! Can you imagine?
No, it would have been
Wow.
horrible.
It would have been horrible.
Then the timing was right.
But the
now,
Yeah.
timing was now, and then the more we were together, the more I was like, wow. I'm like, I tell her she's my person.
You called me up. I don't know. It's got to be a month ago or so, and it was.
Before you left
It
for
was
the-
a few weeks into meeting her, and you're like, dude, I'm in love, head over heels. I know, I found the one. I'm like, whoa, bro, slow it down. And I'm like, how did this happen? And then you told me the story of her, and
I know his sister. I went to school with his sister, so I know.
So in your prayer, a connection with
Yes.
the two families, you knew his sister.
And my sister worked with my sister worked with his
Right.
sister, so it was like a very big connection. I know his sister since 11th grade, so
In your prayer, you said has to be within 3 miles. How far away does he live?
mile.
A mile.
Mile.
And you wanted somebody with humility who's humble.
Mm-hmm.
Since opening up, maybe the old Pasquale.
No.
No, me neither. That's what I was just saying. Like,
No humility. I didn't give a fuck about anything. I was a selfish prick. I was.
Yeah, me too, man.
I just didn't.
Well,
for
we're
as
in
good
pain.
as good as I was, because I didn't have a black heart. I
Right.
knew what it was to have pain and
Right.
but
Right.
I was still a prick.
Yeah. If you wanted to have a great month to 3 month relationship, I was your guy. like it would be a blast, but then you'd be people.
Yeah.
The women were like, well,
But,
and I'd be like, I can't change.
Yeah, but it's been like I asked, and she said, God, prayer, and spirit, and being spiritual, and all of that stuff. And I said, I was like, I had met somebody prior, right, which was just, when I think back of it, I needed to go through that. I needed to have that.
And she had met somebody prior online.
She had met somebody, but you go through, you start to, I found myself starting to like sometimes fall back into things, and you catch it because you become more aware and mindful of it, and then you want to be vulnerable, and you put that vulnerability out, but you can always be crushed,
right,
when you're vulnerable.
True.
Right. You can't, and that was a part of it. But like you said, he sees, he closes doors. So I had to go through that because that's how I looked at it now. I didn't look at it in the beginning of it. And then I put my hands up. I'm like, listen, I'm good. Because I was good. I was good being on my own. I found peace, solitude, all of that stuff.
And she said the same exact thing.
So,
like, I'm fine.
Like, I'm good. Like,
right
I'm
now.
like, I'm good. I'm like, whatever. If something comes along, great. If it doesn't, I got my grandkids. I got my kids. I have my family. Couple of people. I'm good. Because my Friday nights, Saturday nights were usually home, or, I'd occasionally go out. I'd go out to my friend's place, hang out, have dinner, whatever, or hang out with him. We'd go to, and that was it. There was no more drinking and all that. It just, I was done, but I threw my hands up. I'm like, whatever. Podcast comes out. She shows up. And the rest is history.
And then for you, how soon? By that second date where you're watching a movie, are you starting?
Yeah,
to be
we were
like,
second. Yeah, I was like,
this is starting to feel right.
Like, this is like, it was very easy, comfortable. I felt very safe with her. I felt the conversations we were having she understood. She understood where I was coming. There was no judgments. It's just being seen, being heard. That's it.
Right. And how about for you?
Same.
By the end of the second date?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you were like,
yeah, 100%. I thought this is a person that I could have a life with. That's what I thought.
Right.
And I thought it would be a good match, but I don't know. And we kind of just we just sort of started talking about the things we wanted, and we both kind of wanted the same thing. So I think we both were at that point on the second date, kind of in our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And you both have kids, but they're grown, right?
Yeah.
They're adults, right? And you Pasquale just mentioned a minute ago about being vulnerable, and not everybody will take that right. You told me, like, you opened up to one of the guys you were with at a time, about the grandfather in the cot, and he blamed you. Like, why would you go on the cot?
It's like, well, why?
Like, you're a 4-year-old.
Why'd you go there? Why would you go there every time? And I was like, why would I even tell him? Like, in my head, I should have known better, because you can't tell people that weren't abused themselves and gone through it, because they don't have the right perspective.
Right.
So the fact that I thought that was one of the things too. Like, I was so happy in a way because I could talk to him and he wouldn't judge. And if I had a moment or I was triggered, or I could be honest with somebody and tell them what was really going on, rather than can't say anything. You know what I mean?
What I hate is people that are grown now. They know exactly what their little 4-year-old self would have done, like, back then. Like, I would never have gone on that cut. Like, I've had these trolls on videos I've done online, and they'd be like, why would you ever get back in his truck? Why would you ever do that again? You had to have enjoyed it. You've had to have wanted it. It's just like, like, they know exactly, the grown man now, they know exactly what their little 8-year-old self would have done. That's the part. It's just like, you just want to.
I know.
People don't get it,
It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's whatever. You don't get,
But when you can be vulnerable to somebody and they understand.
It is. But it became a point, like she said, she asked for a certain thing, and I asked for somebody that, I said, I was like, listen, I said, just send me somebody that mirrors me. Send me somebody that's going to understand me, that's going to appreciate me, that's going to value me, that's going to look at me, because I'm not perfect. Nobody is. There's no such thing as perfect. We're all imperfect.
So you had prayed for somebody also.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I was working in a restaurant when I got out of prison, and I was working on changing the law. And, like, it was just like nonstop, meeting with senators, going to Trenton for hearings. And once we got the law passed, I'm working these long hours at a restaurant in the kitchen, and I'm driving home one night, and I'm like, God, I haven't had a woman who's had the passion and love like I had with Lisa back in college. Can you bring me someone that has that same passion and love like
You
she
actually
had
said her
back?
name?
Yeah, because she was inside my skull for 30 years scratching away. So I didn't pray for her. I prayed for somebody who had the passion and love
right?
like she had.
Right.
And he said, okay, I'll bring you Lisa.
Wow. That's a great story, too.
Yeah. So I prayed for the same exact thing,
Yeah.
not knowing how it would play out. You didn't know how it would play out. You didn't know how it would play
No.
out.
I didn't know. I mean, listen, it was just 2 months last week.
Yeah.
Seriously, 2 months.
It
It doesn't feel like 2 months. It really doesn't. It feels like it's been longer. It's like, we've been here.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Feels like our souls have
You know,
known each other a longer time.
So comfortable.
Yeah.
should I tell them what I did last night?
To you?
Uh-oh.
Nah, we'll skip that part. Maybe in the next episode or next podcast.
Now you're gonna have to tell me off camera.
This is how comfortable it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Where I'm very conscious of it, and because I won't, because you know how it is when you meet somebody new, you don't want to pass gas, you don't want to do anything that's, you're on your best behavior.
Right.
But I didn't feel I have to do this with her. Like I could be me. Apparently I was me last night. Apparently I passed gas on her, so, and she tells me this, I was like,
We were
wow.
laughing about it this morning.
I was
So
like, wow.
funny.
But that's the reality. It's just very comfortable. She's met my family. She's met my children. My children love her. Took a liking to her. My grandkids, she was with my ex-wife. We were with my ex-wife,
2 nights
the
ago.
mother of my kids, 2 nights ago,
Oh.
and had said something very nice.
She
to
thanked
her.
me.
She
Yeah,
thanked her,
she
which
thanked
was
me for being so good with the grandkids, and she was just,
Which is-
it was very
It's a
sweet.
testament to
It was
her
very sweet.
and her character and how genuine she is.
Did you ever have a talk with your first wife? Did she listen to the interview? And
I'm sure I'm sure she has, and and she, like I said when we did the interview, I wanted to tell my kids first, so apparently my daughter knew, because she had said something to her, but we have a great relationship, it's just we're friends. She's family still.
Right.
She's married. She may be my ex-wife, but she's still part of my family, and that's how it's always going to be.
Good.
We have kids together. We have grandkids together.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Same would apply with with her, and her ex and the children. That doesn't go away.
The moral of this story then is if you can address your demon inside and confront it and accept it, you open yourself up to a whole new life, and a whole new life could be with a whole new partner.
It's true.
Anything's possible.
I mean, had you not come on the show, this probably wouldn't have happened.
I doubt it.
I
don't think that would
100% highly doubt
Yeah.
anything would have happened if I would have continued. If I didn't come, it definitely wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. It's miraculous. It's fantastic.
It's a good thing.
exactly why I started this, just to free people. And,
Yeah.
I said at the beginning, it's a feel-good story.
It is a
and it
feel-good
is.
story.
Hey, come on the show,
Yeah.
air your crap out, and start a new journey in life, which could be, so many people stay away from romance, just because they don't want to be hurt again. They
For sure.
but you gotta be vulnerable in order to grow, and you gotta be vulnerable to share your pain, and then you gotta be vulnerable to get into a relationship.
The right person will hear you.
Yeah.
The right person will see you. That's the truth. Doesn't mean the other people are bad. Doesn't mean any of that. The right person. It's not the perfect person. The right person will see you and will hear you. And that's key. And the biggest key is you have to start loving yourself.
Yeah.
Even through all the shit that prior. You have to, because you accept that. And if you don't love yourself, you'll never love anybody else.
How can you?
You can't. It's impossible.
I mean, did you love yourself through
I fucking
those
hate-
first two marriages?
I hated myself.
Yeah.
I hated the things that I was doing.
Yeah.
But yet I continued to do because I just did not want it. Told you the last time I did. You couldn't talk to me. If you tried to talk to me, I'd be like, get the fuck away from me. Put me in a corner. And that just made me do things that I didn't want to. I did them. I own them. Again, people may think when you say this, and I'm sure there's other people out there, they'll say it, well, he's full of shit or he's using it for excuses and blah, blah, blah. No, I own it. It's mine. Yes.
Right.
I did it. These were all emotional things or band-aids that the drinking, the womanizing, especially the womanizing, I mean, we talk about this. Porn. I don't even watch it. I really don't. I don't watch it as much as I would watch it that I used to watch.
Right.
It's non-existent. I don't need it.
Right.
I don't need it. So that's part of releasing the shit that's inside you that you need to release and let go.
And you, Rosemary, did you love yourself through those years of all these sexually charged relationships? And
Definitely not.
yeah.
Definitely not. I think you choose the people you choose are a reflection of how you feel about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So I was always in chaotic, choosing people who couldn't love me, who are hurtful, but that's because I wasn't loving me. And it wasn't until I really had to start saying those affirmations in the mirror, like, when you look yourself in the mirror and you try to think of like every day 5 things about yourself that you like and you love, and I'd really have to face myself. And it was hard in the beginning. I remember looking in the mirror and just nothing came out. I couldn't even stare at myself. What does that tell you? And then little by little, I started to do my, finding things that were good about myself and say every morning. It was just a healing journey. I was on and this was recently. I mean, so yeah, I carried my journey is a little different though, because I was in therapy all along. So what would happen to me was I would fall back. How you were talking about falling back.
Yeah.
So I would go a little forward and then I would fall back. And I was just doing this I was moving forward always, but I was always falling back. So it wasn't until I want to say the past year that I really started, when my kids were in college and I was able to really focus on myself. They were away and I was able to say, okay, that's it. I got to focus on me now. So I started to do pray a lot, which I always prayed, but focus on myself and the things that were great about me and what I could love about myself, and not what I didn't love about myself. I had to really soul search and do that work. And when I did that work, and I'm still doing that work and I'll continue to do that work, that's when I just was telling you, I felt like whole. I felt good, And that's when he and I connected.
The door opened.
So yeah.
Any last words?
Release whatever pain you feel. Reach out. Message me. Message her. Message you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Message somebody that you feel comfortable enough that you can trust.
Yep.
Because that's key. That you can trust. And that's a start.
Right on. Thank you to you both.
Thank you.
Great story. Love it. And there you have it, everybody. If you can go deep inside yourself, confront that monster, confront that pain, accept it. Just accept it. You never know where your life will take you. Maybe you'll even find love. See you next week.